Many attorneys I know are quietly terrified, not of losing a case, but of waking up in 10 years with a practice that owns them, a body that is breaking down, and a marriage that went quiet while they were busy. If that sentence made you sit up, this episode is for you. Because the reason it happens is not typically the reason you think. It's not discipline. It's not time management. It's not the wrong calendar app. It is something that nobody in law school told me about. And today, we are going to fix it. Quick note, nothing in this podcast is legal advice, and no attorney-client relationship is created by listening. Full disclaimer at the end. My name is Robert Bunn, and this is Estate Planning for Lawyers. And today, we are in Chapter 2 of Time Management for Attorneys, a lawyer's guide to decreasing stress, eliminating interruptions, and getting home on time, by Mark Powers and Sean McNalis, published by Atticus. Powers and McNalis titled this chapter, Proactive Strategy 2, Create a Professional Vision Statement. This book is genuinely helping me build my estate planning practice, and I encourage every listener and viewer to get a copy. The link is in the description. And a sincere shout out to Atticus, an organization that has been helping attorneys build better practices for decades. Here is what I meant at the top. A great many attorneys can tell you exactly what they do. Far fewer can tell you why they actually do it, or what they are ultimately building towards. That gap between activity and intention is where I believe law practices quietly erode over a career. You don't feel it on day one. You feel it 15, maybe 20 years in, when you look up and realize you built something you did not mean to build. The wrong clients, the wrong schedule, the wrong life around the wrong practice. The chapter we're covering today is the prevention, is the tool Powers and McNalis hand you to make sure that does not happen to you. It is called a professional vision statement. And without one, I suggest the decisions you are making in your practice are more likely to be reactive than intentional, as we discussed in prior shows. If you watched the last episode, you did the work. You clarified your values. You thought about the life you're trying to build. That work matters, but it is not enough on its own, because your personal vision and your professional vision are not the same thing. They are related. They should reinforce each other, but they are separate, and they need to be built separately. A great many attorneys never build either one. This episode is about the second. Powers and McNalis describe their professional vision statement as serving two purposes. First, it is a reflection of your values, as they apply specifically to your practice. Second, it is an articulation of the philosophical foundation for the professional services you provide. Not what you do on a transactional level, why you do it and how you intend to do it at the highest level. Here's why that matters. Your practice area may change over time. The makeup of your firm may change. Clients will come and go. The legal landscape will shift. A professional vision statement gives you something stable to orient against when all of that movement is happening around you. It keeps you from becoming reactive to changes that are in the larger picture, just noise. When you have a clear professional vision, you can look at any new opportunity or any difficult situation and ask one question. Does this serve my vision or pull me away from it? That question alone is worth the work of writing the statement. So how do you build one? Just as they did in Chapter 1 with your personal values, Powers and McNalis start with your professional values. They offer a business values worksheet that asks you to examine 7 core areas of professional life. These are those 7 in my own words. See the book for the exact references. First, the quality of work you deliver. Second, the clients you work with. Third, your profitability. Fourth, whether your practice runs on systems or on chaos. Fifth, your life and work balance. Sixth, the strength of your team. And seventh, the professional legacy you are building. For each one, you rank how important it is to you, then you rate how satisfied you currently are with how you're managing it right now. That gap between importance and satisfaction is a wealth of insight. I want to sit with 3 of these subjects because for an attorney building an estate planning practice, they deserve more than simply a passing mention. First is the quality of work you deliver. In my experience, this one tends to land near the top when attorneys rank honestly. But the harder question is the satisfaction score. Are you genuinely satisfied with the quality you are producing under the conditions you are working in? When you are reactive, when you are constantly firefighting, when every day is interrupted before it even starts, the work suffers because time is a limited resource. And you keep telling yourself, when things slow down, I'll do even better work. In my experience, things do not slow down on their own. Their professional vision statement is part of how you take the reins and create the conditions for better work, instead of waiting for conditions to improve on their own. The second topic of emphasis is the clients you work with. This one is directly connected to what the authors call threshold law, which is the principle that you should define in advance, the kind of clients and matters you will and will not take. If you rank working with clients you genuinely like as a high professional value, but your satisfaction score in that category is low, that gap is telling you something. You are taking cases you likely should not be taking for reasons that have nothing to do with your vision, often everything to do with fear. Fear of an empty calendar, fear of a slow month, fear of simply not saying no. The professional vision statement gives you a standard to hold yourself to when the temptation to say yes to the wrong client shows up. And it will show up. The third value we're sitting with is professional legacy. This one, I believe, tends to get ranked towards the bottom because it feels abstract compared to something like profitability or work quality. It is my contention it belongs near the top, especially for an estate planning attorney. Because legacy is not something you just leave when you retire. It is a reputation you're building right now with every client, every document, every conversation. Those of us in estate planning are in the business of helping people think about legacy. It makes sense that we would hold ourselves to that same higher standard professionally. I want to bring in a second voice now, because what I'm about to describe is to me one of the most important ideas I have read on building a law practice, and it does not come from a lawyer. Lieutenant Colonel Robert W. Schaefer, retired U.S. Army Special Forces, recently published a book called The Green Beret Way, Leading Elite Teams Under Extreme Conditions. I have known Robert for over 20 years. I trust him. He went through Special Forces assessment and selection, a grueling 21-day evaluation that determines which candidates earn the right to move on to the qualification course, where they actually train to become Green Berets. He earned his Green Beret, and he spent his career leading elite teams under conditions most of us will never ever encounter. And he wrote a book about what all of that experience teaches about leadership, character, and what it takes to build something exceptional. In Chapter 2 of that book, Schaefer describes what selection is actually like. And it sits directly alongside what Powers and McNalis are asking you to do in this chapter on professional vision. Before you can build a professional vision worth committing to, you have to know who you actually are, not who you think you are, not who you present yourself to be in professional settings, who you actually are when things go wrong, when the pressure is real, when the easy path is right in front of you and the right path requires something more. Schaefer is clear that Special Forces selection is not primarily a physical test. It is a character assessment. The question the entire process is designed to answer is, do you know your why? And here's the detail that stopped me cold when I read it. Schaefer writes that the majority of candidates who dropped out of selection did not leave because of injuries. They were voluntary drops because they did not have a clear mission. They could not answer the why. And when the conditions became difficult enough, that absence of purpose became the deciding factor. Schaefer describes candidates on these long, isolated marches under an 80-pound rucksack, alone with their own thoughts for hours on end, playing mental games to keep going. They pick the tallest tree in the distance and say to themselves, I will just keep going until that tree. And then once they reach that tree, they pick the next one and the next. until eventually, for some of them, the world gets so small that they're chanting one more step in their head for hours on end. That is what it looks like physically to live out the truth of the sentence that Schaefer articulates. Discipline dies without purpose. You can have all the intention in the world, all the goals, all the work ethic. But if you cannot connect what you are doing to something that genuinely matters to you at a deep level, your own discipline will eventually fail you. Not because you're weak, but because human beings are not designed to sustain effort towards something that does not truly mean anything to them. And then Schaefer says something later in that same chapter that I want attorneys listening to hear, because it speaks your language directly. He writes, and I am giving you the substance of his point, that you cannot determine the return on investment on any hard thing until you have established the why. The ROI question, the is this worth it question, cannot be answered until the why question has been answered first. That is exactly the question Powers and McNalis are asking you to answer right now when they ask you to draft a personal, professional vision statement. I think about this in the context of building an estate planning practice. There's easier areas to practice. There's faster ways to generate revenue. There are practice areas with less emotional weight, less complexity, less demand on your intention and judgment. I chose this one. And I want you to ask yourself the same question I had to ask myself. Why does this area of law matter to you? Not at the surface level, not income, not convenience, at the level that will still be there on the hard days, because the hard days will come. And that answer is what carries you through them. That is why the professional vision statement you are building in this chapter is not a formality. It is not a box to check. It is your answer to the why. It is the thing you come back to when the day belongs to everybody else, when the work that you plan is still sitting there untouched, when you are wondering whether any of this is worth it. Powers and McNalis are asking you to write your professional vision and own it. Schaefer shows us in vivid and unforgettable examples what happens when we cannot. The Green Beret Way is available now, and I recommend it. The link is in the description. Once you have worked through the values exercise, Powers and McNalis move you into building the statement itself. They provide sentence starters, similar to those in Chapter 1, but oriented entirely towards your professional life. One of those sentence starters asks you to articulate your business philosophy. And I want to flag it specifically because it forces you to answer not just what you do, but how and why you do it. This is also where the work of Michael Gerber, who I referenced in the last episode, becomes directly relevant. In the E-Myth Revisited, Gerber draws a distinction that matters here. He argues that most small business owners spend their time working in their business, handling the day-to-day technical work, instead of working on their business, designing the systems and philosophies that give it direction, developing a business that works. A written business philosophy is part of working on it. For a estate planning attorney, that foundation matters enormously. We work with people at some of the most vulnerable and consequential moments of their entire life. Having a clear written business philosophy is not a corporate exercise. It is a commitment to the people you serve. Here's my takeaway from this chapter. When I started Bunn.Law PLLC, I had a personal why. My father's passing in 2020. As I explained in the last show, the lost will, the missing HIPAA release, the intubation the night after I left the hospital, before I could get back to exchange I love yous one last time. I told that story at length in the last episode, and I'm not going to harsh it again here. But that experience is what drove me to this area of law. A why, however, is not a vision. A why tells you where you came from. A vision tells you what you are building and who you are building it for and what you refuse to compromise along the way. I had the first, I did not have the second. Not in writing. I had intentions. I had goals. I did not have a statement. This chapter is asking you to close that gap, to take the personal vision you took in Chapter 1 and build its professional counterpart. What kind of practice are you building? What kind of clients do you serve? What does the work look like when it is done at the level you are capable of? What do you want your professional legacy to be? Write it down. Not perfectly, just honestly. Powers and McNalis are confident that the effort alone will move you in the right direction. And I believe them. I have seen the clarity the process has brought to my own thinking about my practice. The personal vision tells you what life you are building. The professional vision tells you what practice will serve that life. Together, they are your blueprint. Without them, you're building without one. Next episode, we cover Chapter 3, Setting Strategic Goals. Because a vision without goals is a wish, and we're not here to wish. If you are building an estate planning practice or thinking about starting one, do me a favor, subscribe so the next episode finds you automatically. And in the comments, I want to hear one thing from you. What does your professional vision statement look like? Or if you haven't written one yet, what is the why underneath your practice? I read every comment. And before we close, a quick but important note. Nothing in this podcast constitutes legal advice, and watching or listening to this show does not create an attorney-client relationship between us. The content here is for educational and informational purposes only. Always consult with a licensed attorney in your jurisdiction for advice specific to your situation. All views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely my own on behalf of Bunn.Law, PLLC. This episode discussed content from Time Management for Attorneys, a lawyer's guide to decreasing stress, eliminating interruptions, and getting home on time by Mark Powers and Sean McNalis, and also referenced the Green Beret Way, leading elite teams under extreme conditions by retired Lieutenant Colonel Robert W. Schaefer. All rights in those works belong to their respective owners. My discussion is commentary and analysis, and neither the authors nor the publishers have endorsed or affiliated with this show. I will welcome you in the next episode.